for us to move on to the next part of our session. And that is Valerie Soza. She's a plant biologist. She studied the evolution of tropical rhododendrons and genomes of temperate rhododendrons. And she is also a steering committee of the Rhododendron Research Network. And so take it away, Valerie. Valerie, we can't hear you. I was muted trying to tell Valerie that she was muted. That was really funny.
Thanks, Juliana. And thanks everybody for attending our first virtual meeting. I'm putting some links in the chat that you might want before we get started. So one of our goals today, our theme for our first virtual meeting was energizing collaborative working groups. And so we wanted to highlight two tools that facilitate collaboration among network members and rhododendron researchers in general. And so Bob showed you one of them, is the discussion forum. The other one that we want to highlight is the Mendeley online rhododendron literature database. And this is very useful for people who might not have institutional journal subscriptions, because we are trying to provide a way for people to access articles and viewing the PDFs for those articles. It's also really useful if you're writing papers for keeping track, for inserting references, generating bibliographies, and it's really helpful, especially if you're working on a collaborative paper or grant, because if you are working with someone else who's also using the database, you can keep track of all of the references that everyone has been incorporating into this document cohesively with this tool. We are using it's a free software, Mendeley Reference Manager software. Has anyone used Mendeley to this date? If you have, raise your hand. Okay, I see two folks. Has anyone used any other reference managing software like Zotero or EndNote? Raise your hand.
EndNote.
EndNote, okay. Okay, great.
Same here, EndNote. Okay,
so it seems like a lot of us have familiarity with some form of reference manager software, but we do want more of our network participants to be using the Mendeley database and also contributing to it because it's not completely comprehensive. So far, we have about 3,000 articles that are in the database, and they span from 1692 to 2021. We are adding new publications quarterly to the database and have a team of volunteers from the American Rhododendron Society and Holden that are adding older references to fill those holes. So you should have all received a invitation to join the Mendeley group. You might have already joined and haven't accessed it in a while, or if you had not joined before, we sent you an invitation to your email. If you did not get that, I put a link in the chat to request. Access. So this is what we're going to be highlighting today is the Rhododendron Literature Database. And if you click on this link, you can also find the form to request access to this database. It is a private group that currently we're able to have 50 people in it. And so we're having a priority for RRN participants. And if you didn't get the invitation, you can request access by filling out this form. I've also posted in the discussion forum instructions for today's workshop and for you to follow along with or to refer to at a later date. That link is also posted in the chat. And I'll try to be going through this a little slow so you can follow along on your computer. But if you want to get it set up, or you can just sit back and watch because the instructions are here for you to refer to at a later time. If you are trying to set it up today, we won't really have time to help you if you encounter any problems. But if you do have problems, please reply to this topic and one of us will assist you further because if you encounter a problem, someone else is likely to have that same problem. So having this all centralized here will be useful to you and other people that might have similar issues. And to give you an overview of Mendeley, it actually is available in both a web version and a desktop version. In order to request access, you first have to create an account and log in through the web version, and then you can access the desktop version after that. So I'll be going over how to join the database, how to use the web and desktop versions today, and then both of these you can view PDFs, journal articles with, but only the desktop version gives you the functionality of using it with writing. And currently the Mendeley desktop is set up with Microsoft Word to insert in-text citations and generate bibliographies automatically. I should probably get is there anyone here that uses something besides Microsoft Word to write documents? Raise your hand. Okay. Thanks. Okay. So we will, and I'll give you some tips on if you use something else besides Microsoft Word at the end. But we'll first start, we're going to walk through let's see. And if for some reason you're not, I'm going to try sharing a bunch of applications today. If for some reason you're not seeing what I'm trying to show, please holler so I know. So you all should have at some point in the past, if you already requested access or after registering for this meeting, received an email invitation to join the Mendeley group. If you didn't, it might also be in your junk mail. That happened to someone else. But to join, to access the database, you first have to use this link from your email, join this group. And when you click on that, Mendeley is associated with Elsevier. So you need to create an Elsevier account. Oh, let me actually. I'm going to, just one moment, I'm going to use an account that is not already a member, so you can see me walking through the process. Okay, let's see if this works here. Okay, so you all should have received a email, and if you click on this link, join this group, hopefully this person is not already registered, you will be taken to an Elsevier page. And if you don't already have an Elsevier account, then you need to create one by entering a username and password. If you already have an account, which is my case, you sign in with your Elsevier account. If you're first creating an Elsevier account, it will, after you do that, you want to hit continue to Mendeley, and it'll take you to Mendeley. So I'm going to create a sign in. And I actually might be a member ready for both of them. So if this is your first time accepting the invitation, there'll be an accept or a decline underneath the group, and you want to hit accept and then go to the group. And when you go to the group, it'll give you an overview of the Mendeley group. And there are a couple of tabs that you can use to get more information. If you want to go to members, it'll show you all of the members that are already in this private group. If you go to documents, it'll show you all of the articles that are in the database, but this is not the best place to actually access these. And then if you go to settings, this is where, for some reason, if you don't want to be in the group anymore, you can leave the group. The best place to do stuff in Mendeley in the web version is by using this link, View Group Documents and Library. So if you click on that link, it'll take you to this page. And to orient you, you have your own personal library, which is your Mendeley library here. And these are references that you can add here and refer to, but only you can see. The Rhododendron Literature Database is on the left side underneath private groups. You need to click on this Rhodo ResearchNet private group in order to access documents in that database. One thing to note before we go there is when you first get to when you first join Mendeley and get to this homepage, there is an add-on for Microsoft Word here called Mendeley Site. And I recommend not using that because it's in beta version and doesn't work very well when you're writing documents. What I found to be most useful is the plugin that's available with the desktop version, which we'll go over later. So for using the web version, it's mostly useful, at least in my experience, for viewing PDFs of journal articles. And to do that, you want to go to private groups and select the Rhodo ResearchNet private group. And then you should have access to all of the documents that have been added to this database. And you can sort by author by clicking the heading, year, title, publication under source, added, and then one of the more useful columns is this file column, and that shows you whether or not a PDF is available for a particular publication. Not all publications in here have PDFs added to them, so if you have a PDF that you can add, that would be useful to help us build the database. But if we sort on file, we can see all of the publications that have a PDF associated with them here at the top with this file icon. And to view a PDF, you just simply click on that icon and it'll bring up the PDF associated with that publication if it's when it's available. Another thing that is helpful is if you're looking for an article about a particular topic. So if you wanted to look for articles, you can use the search bar. So if you wanted to look for articles that had that were about Rhododendron dalavi, you can just type in dalavi, whoops, and search, and it'll bring up a list of publications that have that topic in them. And if you find that a reference is not in here, we encourage you to add it. So I'm going to show you how to add references to the web version. It's good to first search and make sure the reference is not already in the database before adding it, so to avoid us having duplicates. So say I'm compiling a list of Virrea species, and I heard about this paper by Craven published in 2014 that described 3 species of Virrea, and I want to look for it to see if it's in here. To add to a document, you can search for Craven and then sort by year, and there is no Craven 2014 publication, but I do have a PDF of it here. And if it's pretty easy to add references to the database, if you have a PDF, you just drag and drop it there. So I'll show you an example of that. If you have a PDF on your file, one thing to note is that you cannot drag and drop into the database directly. What you have to do in the web version is you have to first drag this to your personal library, and then you can move it to the Rhododendron Literature Database to be accessible for other people as well. So to do that, you go to All References, which is your personal library, and you drag the PDF there, and it will automatically upload that and get all of the information it needs to fill out the fields for author, year, title, publication. And so it does that automatically, extracts that information from the PDF. And then if we wanted to add it to the Rhoda ResearchNet private group, we have to drag it there. And so now when we go to Rhoda ResearchNet private group and we search for Craven, we have the 2014 reference there. And if you click on a reference, this window will open up, and if you had, say, if you wanted to add a PDF to something, you can do that here with this add file option. Sometimes you don't have a PDF or something, and you maybe exported it from a journal website, exported the reference information, and you have a file like a .bib or a .ris file. You can add those here under this Add New option and that would be under Import Library. You can import files, or you can do a manual entry. So one way to do this is you can type everything out, but if you have a DOI, it makes it a lot more easy. So for example, if we wanted to add this Judd and Cron publication from 1995, we can find a DOI available for that here. And first I should check to see if it's in the database or not. So if we do a search for Judd, that was 1995. it's not currently in the database. So if we wanted to add that reference, you could go to add new, and this would be under the add manual entry, you can enter DOIs, and it'll automatically extract the information for you and fill in all of the corresponding fields for that publication. And then you can add entry. And then again, this is added to your personal library. So you would then need to drag it to the Rhoda ResearchNet private group. And there it is. The web version is very useful for viewing PDFs, and we encourage you to add things as you're using it that currently aren't in there. But I think that the desktop version has the most functionality in that you can also view PDFs and add to the database, but then you can use it in writing collaborative papers and grants more easily than you can with the web version. So I am going to bring up the desktop now. Stop sharing my screen. Okay, so once you have joined the Mendeley private group, you can, and I put a link in the chat where to download the desktop if you haven't already. It's also available in instructions on the discussion forum. Once you have it downloaded and installed on your computer, and you first open it up, it'll ask you for your email and password, and you want to use what you used when you created your Elsevier account to log into the web version. Let's see, it looks like it kicked me off. Here we go. Okay, so hopefully you all can see that. If you can't, holler. And it looks like, so again, this is similar to the web version. The desktop version has a personal library and then also the Rhoda ResearchNet private group. And so you can see the two references that I added to my personal library in the web version. This automatically syncs up with the web version. And if there's any changes that someone makes, you can hit the sync button to make sure your desktop version is synced up to the most recent version of the database. And then again, the Rhododendron literature database is under groups, and you can access that by going to the Rhoda ResearchNet private group. So it's similar to the web in that you can sort. These are, this star is favorites. One thing that we discovered in the last meeting is if you favorite something, it will show up as a favorite for everyone else that's using the database. Just know that that everyone else, it'll become everybody else's favorite. You can also sort by file here, so you can see which articles have PDFs, and to access the PDFs, you simply click on this icon, and it'll bring up the PDF associated with that particular publication. Again, you can sort by title, year, publication, date added, and again, this you can add things to that you might not find, and it's actually easier in the desktop version to add references with PDFs. You can just drag them and drop them immediately into the Rhoda ResearchNet private group. You don't have to drag them first to your personal library. So I'll show an example. So I know that there was a paper published last year on rhododendron male sequencing its transcriptome. And if I do a search for male, I'm going to do male 2020. I do not see the reference that I'm looking for. But if you have a PDF, you can just drag and drop it directly into the database. And I don't think you're going to see where I'm dragging the PDF from right now, but I'm dragging one from my computer directly into the Rhoda ResearchNet private group. And it automatically gets added to the Rhoda ResearchNet private group. You don't have to drag it to your library first. And another way, again, you can add references using this add button here. If you want to add a file, a .bib or .ris or a PDF, you can also just select it from your computer this way, or you can do a manual entry with the down arrow next to that add button, and it'll bring up the form where you can add items manually to something if you don't have a file for it. Okay, and so now I'm going to show you one of the really powerful tools for reference managing software is in writing papers. Because instead of keeping track of all of the references using a paper and then generating a bibliography at the end for it, Reference Manager software will do that for you automatically. And Mendeley Desktop works with Microsoft Word and a couple of other applications, but I know that it doesn't work with Apple Pages or Google Docs for inserting in-text citations, but you can still use it to generate a bibliography. And we have some instructions on that in the instructions posted in the discussion forum. But I'm going to show you how it works with Microsoft Word today. And you first need to install a plugin for Microsoft Word, and that is available under Tools. This install MS Word plugin. You want to select that to install the plugin that's needed to work with Microsoft Word. And once that is done, then you can open Microsoft Word. I'm going to stop sharing here, and I'm going to bring up a document in Microsoft Word. Okay. You'll know that if Mendeley is installed by going under the References tab in Microsoft Word. Here you should find some buttons that have the Mendeley icon, and that's how you know it is installed. One thing to note is I initially used Zotero as my reference manager software, and you can have both of those tools in Word and use either one. You can see that Zotero is here and Mendeley is separate under the References tab. So if you're writing a document and you want to cite particular publications for information that you're referencing and create a bibliography at the end, Mendeley makes that very easy. And to do that using the Rhododendron Literature Database, you simply click on where you want to insert in-text citation. And in this case, I want to insert a publication by Brown from 2006 that used some chloroplast data to examine relationships in viraeas. If you click on where you want to insert your citation and then select this Insert or Edit Citation button, you want to make sure that you select the Rhoda ResearchNet private group as your database that you're using. And then simply type in the author and year of the publication that you're looking for, and it'll bring up matches for that. I want to select the one that used chloroplast data and then hit OK. Sometimes I get this window, and if you just hit retry, it'll enter in that information. So now now you have a reference for that. There's two other references that I want to put in this document. So I'm going to insert citations. One by Gosh in 2011. And another one by Brown in 2006 that used nuclear data. And so once you're done writing your paper and you want to insert a bibliography at the end, you use this Insert Bibliography button, and that'll automatically create a bibliography that contains all of the references you've used in the text. And another useful tool about Mendeley and other reference managing software is that they automatically reformat things depending on where you're submitting your paper to. If you say you wanted to submit a paper to Nature, if you go here under the Style menu and select Nature Journal, it'll automatically reformat your in-text citations and your bibliography to the journal specifications for those. And you can add more styles if they're not already here into this drop-down menu. So Mendeley is really useful for that. And again, if you're writing a paper with someone else and you both are using the Rhoda ResearchNet private group and working on different parts of the paper, inserting references, if you're using this database that we've provided, it'll automatically be able to generate bibliography that's comprehensive from the different citations that people have entered from the database. Okay. So again, if you want to review how to we've outlined everything here in the discussion forum under the instructions, how to join the database, how to use the web version of Mendeley, how to use the desktop version for viewing PDFs. And then we do have how to use a desktop version for writing papers with Microsoft Word. And then if you use Google Pages or Google Docs or Apple Pages, we have some information here on how to create bibliographies for those documents, document type applications using Mendeley. One other thing to note, I use Zotero the most, just because I've used that most of my career for writing papers. And you can export the rhododendron literature database from Mendeley and import it into Zotero or other reference software managers. And we have information on how to do that. The only downside for that is once you export it, you're exporting the database as is. And so if you're using it in Zotero and after you've exported it, someone else adds references or PDFs, if there's any updates to the database, that will not be reflected in your exported database if those updates have happened after the export. So you have to find a way to keep your exported databases up to date. And so I do recommend just using Mendeley for the rhododendron literature database so that you always have an up-to-date version. And in my case, I've learned I can use Zotero as well with Microsoft Word. And then we do have some terms of use for the rhododendron literature database. So please read these before you start using the database, so you know what best practices are for the database. One other thing I think I forgot to mention is that in the web version, it's very easy. It's not easy to delete references from the database, but in the desktop version, it is. If you right-click on a publication, there's a delete option, or you can move it to the trash. And if you do that, it'll be gone for everybody else. So make sure that you not delete any references from the Rhoda ResearchNet private group. And then we have some other information here on the terms of use for membership, adding references, PDF sharing. And then if you have any questions or concerns, Juliana would probably be the best person to get in touch with. But if you do have problems using the database, please first post them here to the forum so that we can help you and have this as a resource for other people to use too, in case they have similar problems. And I think I'll stop there so we have a good amount of time for discussion.
Excellent, Valerie. Thank you very much. I learned something both times you showed us that, so woohoo. So we're going to have a quick discussion and then we'll have a little break. And then we want everybody to hurry back to hear Alan's talk. So first of all, I just want to open it up to any questions or comments that people might have. So actually, Michael had sent me a question over the email, which I'll share with you all, was the idea that we're using the Mendeley as an Elsevier product. And not everybody in science is all that thrilled with Elsevier, as I can understand. It's kind of a high profit venue, and we're often trying to move away from those kind of venues. I will say that when I started using Mendeley, it was a freeware. So that was a sadness to me. We are not wed to Mendeley, and the reason is we can always export our items. So I'm saving all the PDFs. I will mention if you export the database, you don't get the PDFs. The PDFs are basically stored in the database in a way that when you export, you just get the references.
Juliana, I was able to get the PDF. So I exported it as a .bib and a .ris from Mendeley. And when I imported that into Zotero, all of the PDFs were there.
Well, maybe I'm screwing up somehow, so I'll have to investigate that because I have not been able to get that to happen. Interesting. But the reality is we can leave Mendeley when we want to. we're not wed to it. We've liked it in terms of the interface is fantastic. Now they did recently get rid of the public group, which we really liked. So who knows what's in store for Mendeley. But what we're doing is we're just basically building an electronic bibliography. And so, yeah, I think we're going to keep our eye on Elsevier and decide if it's something that we want to get away from. Does anybody have comments about that specifically or thoughts about the Mendeley platform?
I have a couple of questions. I have a couple of questions. I'm doing quite much search on the internet for scientific papers. And one thing that bothers me a lot is that you can find an abstract, but it's very difficult to find the actual PDF. And now when I got to this Mendeley, this research this group, I thought that, wait a minute, here now I can find a lot of PDFs, but no, there are only very few.
We're working on it. So if you see something in there that you can't, that doesn't have the PDF yet, I might have it in a folder with the volunteer waiting to upload it.
Okay.
So if there's stuff in there that you want us to prioritize, like if you could send me a list of references, I will prioritize that. Our goal is to be a place where people can get PDFs, because I have the same problem. I'm not affiliated with the university and my organization can't pay for the subscriptions. So basically we have people that are just tracking them down, emailing every author, and all of that. So the good news for us is because this is a private group, we can put anything we want in here. And apparently so far Elsevier will not track us down for it. So that's partly why they got rid of the public group, is they weren't able to control people's sharing. And so hopefully this is sort of settled down. But yeah, if you see something that's not in there, we might have it. It's a slow process. So we could use 10 more volunteers, to be honest. And I just got Hartvig is gonna send me a giant new thing of new references. So yeah, that's our hope.
Okay, thank you very much for that. Another question is
can I add something about that before you ask your next question, Christian?
Yep.
If you open up one of the references and you scroll down the list of items, often there's a section that's called File, and there often is a link there, not always, but there can be a link there. And that link can often bring up the web page that has the full article. It's not PDF, but it's the full article. And as an example, all of the articles from the quarterly bulletin and the journal of the ARS are linked that way. And there are many other journals as well that'll be that way. So when you're looking, please make sure you look there in addition to looking for the PDF version.
Excellent point, Bob.
Yeah, thank you. That was good.
Yeah, can you just scroll down? The one that's open, just scroll down. There. There's the link, and if you go ahead and click on it. We lost the screen share.
Yeah, Zoom changed.
Yeah,
so
there it is.
Change it.
Yeah.
Nice.
And again, these are not PDFs. These are just the web pages. So we probably have more of these than we have actually PDFs at the moment.
Yeah, and all the JARS articles are linked this way.
Well, in many other journals, there are free versions that are available via the web links, and they're not PDFs.
I have noticed that. And I found those very useful.
Okay.
And another question can I now ask is that now everything here is in English, but sometimes I also want to look at Korean or Japanese articles and then translate them. Is this database now restricted only to English?
No, the barrier is we don't know what those things say. So what we need is people in different languages to help us get things that are relevant. I would be thrilled to have, there's a whole world of papers on the Tsutsutsis, which is my oddly favorite group, in Japanese and Korean and Chinese that I would absolutely love to host. So yeah, the barrier is knowing what we're posting and being able to figure out. So we would love to do that. If you have a resource for example, if you have resources for Russian papers, that's an area that's hard for us to populate because we don't have access and we don't necessarily know how to use it. So
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
yeah. We're putting this on our list. You guys don't know this, but we're making a list of to-dos and it will go on there for sure. Yeah, that's a great point. I often feel sad that I can't read all that great literature in different languages because I know I'm missing out. Great questions. I'm gonna say that, so it's 10:15 till. Let's do maybe one more question and then we'll take a little break before Alan's talk. My question is this. As we grow, the Mendeley groups have a size limit of 50 people per group. And so there are essentially two options. One option is to just keep putting people in randomized groups. So you're all in a group together right now. You're not necessarily doing similar things. Another option is to create subject-specific groups. And there's pluses and minuses to that. For example, it makes it a little harder to keep all the information the same. It would be more work on our end. But the benefit would be that you'd be in a subject group with people that you might actually work with. So rather than having the random everybody, you might be sort of put into a situation where there's people you could actually collaborate with. So does anybody have an opinion on that and how useful that would be to be subject specific versus, you know, whatever?
Sometimes subjects are overlapping, so it's a kind of problem. I think it's better to have one big database which you can search then.
I agree. Yeah, the world is interdisciplinary now, isn't it? So nothing is one topic. One thing I want to point out is that you could actually make, once you have a Mendeley account, you can make your own groups. So you could have, I think you can have up to 5 groups and you can include your collaborators in there. So what you could do to make a subject specific group for yourself is just drag our database over and then invite your subject specific buddies. So awesome. All right, anybody else have any last questions before we take a little break? Any thoughts or comments, Bob or Valerie?
Yeah, I guess one thing that we wanted to get out of this meeting was if there are any other tools that people would like to see us develop on our webpage. And if there's any suggestions you have for what we've already developed that would make it easier for you to use. If anyone has comments on those topics, we'd love to get that input from you.
And if you can't think of anything right now, feel free to shoot us an email and let us know.
Or include it in the discussion forum.
Yes. Yes, discussion, use the discussion forum.
Yeah, there's a section there ideally for that purpose. Yeah.
Thank you, Bob.